It began as a joke, sharp-edged and cruel. The billionaire leaned back in his velvet chair, waving an old scroll covered in strange markings. "Translate this, and my fortune is yours," he laughed, eyes gleaming with mockery. Guests chuckled, knowing the challenge was aimed at the young black woman serving drinks at the edge of the room. She was just the housekeeper, someone meant to blend into the background. But she stepped forward, and as her voice began to weave the words into English, the laughter died. What she revealed would change everything. Watch until the end. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Naomi had worked at the Whitmore estate for only 3 years, but she knew the rhythms of its halls, the way her presence was ignored until someone needed a glass refilled. She was a recent graduate in linguistics, but racial bias and economic barriers had kept her far from the academic career she dreamed of. Instead, she polished silver and carried trays in rooms where fortunes were made. On the night of the charity gala, she wore the crisp uniform of the staff and moved through the crowd with quiet efficiency. Crystal chandeliers glowed above, and the guests sparkled in gowns and tuxedos. Naomi was used to being invisible here, but then, from the center of the room, Mr. Whitmore's voice cut through the music, holding up a brittle parchment. He promised his fortune to anyone who could translate it. His smirk told her it wasn't an invitation, it was a taunt. The parchment's edges were frayed, the symbols carved into its surface like whispers from another century. Naomi recognized the script instantly. It was a rare African dialect her grandmother had taught her during summer evenings on the porch. Few could read it now, but Naomi had cherished those lessons like treasure. She stepped forward, ignoring the snickers from nearby guests. Mr. Whitmore extended the parchment with a mocking bow, certain she would fail. Her hands trembled as she held it, not from fear, but from the weight of what she might find. Her voice was soft at first, then stronger as she read aloud. The text was no riddle, it was a legal will from Whitmore's father, written decades ago. It detailed the origins of the family fortune, stolen land, exploited labor, and treasures taken during colonial rule. It stated that this wealth was to be returned to the descendants of those who had suffered under their exploitation. And there, near the end, it named a family by surname, her family, as rightful heirs. The room erupted into murmurs. Some guests exchanged uneasy glances, others scoffed in disbelief. Whitmore's smile cracked, his face turning cold. He snatched the parchment back and muttered about misinterpretations. But the air had shifted. Cameras were raised, eyes were locked on him, and Naomi stood rooted in place. She realized she had just pulled the first thread in unraveling a century-old web of greed and injustice. Whitmore stepped in close, his breath sharp. "You don't know what you've done," he murmured, his voice low enough for only her to hear. The crowd was pressing in now, their whispers like waves crashing. A lawyer from the corner of the room demanded to see the document. Whitmore hesitated too long. That pause was its confession. Phones recorded every flicker of his expression. His empire wasn't shaking because of market shifts or political scandals. It was trembling because a young black housekeeper had spoken the truth. Naomi's heart pounded, but she didn't look away. This moment wasn't about fear anymore. It was about history, justice, and the power of a voice that refused to be silent. By dawn, the scroll was in legal custody, and Whitmore faced a storm he could no longer control. Naomi left the mansion quietly, her uniform folded over her arm, the night's events replaying in her mind. The story spread quickly, how a billionaire's arrogance had uncovered his own family's theft, and how a young black woman had revealed it to the world. Her name became a symbol of courage, but she knew the truth. This wasn't just her fight. For every Naomi, there were countless others whose histories lay buried, waiting for the moment someone dared to speak them aloud. How many more fortunes were built on stolen ground? And more importantly, How many voices like hers were still? Being silenced? Where are you watching from? Take care.